So one of the wildest recruitments for a college football quarterback is still ongoing somehow, some way. Jaden Rashada is in the transfer portal, and this is not a great thing for college football. This situation, I'm not placing all the blame at Rashada's feet here. I am saying that all of this is able to transpire in essentially a 2-year span, just over 2 years, is emblematic, representative of how messed up college football is in several ways. Now, are solutions on the horizon? I've seen no indication of that. There is no commissioner. Nick Saban sounds great in theory. Who's authorizing that? The Big Ten or the SEC? Because the fundamental problem that the idea of a college football commissioner faces is that the power brokers in college football have to agree to it. And if there is one person who's overseeing everyone underneath, those people underneath who appoint that person now have less power because they are not the premier decision makers. It would be just kind of one decision maker. I'm sure there'd be a council and a committee or a board or what have you. But Jaden Rashada was once upon a time committed to Miami. This was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. And then he flipped to Florida at the last moment. This is a 2023 quarterback recruit. He was wanted by all sorts of colleges all across the country. Remember, this kid is not even 20 years old yet. He might be around 20 years old. He's not even 21, not old enough to drink. And he has gone through all of these things already because of the college football world that has been created for him. In January 2023, he decommits from Florida after he had signed a national letter of intent. In February 2023, he commits and signs with Arizona State. He plays in a handful of games. He gets beat out by Sam Leavitt for the starting job. He enters the transfer portal. He goes to Georgia, and now he has re-entered the transfer portal. So I don't bring this up to say that he's someone who, X team should go grab and he could be the starter. He's got plenty of talent, but I have no idea where this kid's head is at. I really legitimately hope that he is able to find a situation. I don't care if it's at the Power 4, the Group of 5, or the FCS ranks. I hope he finds a situation that just gives him some stability. This craziness and madness is not good for the sport, and it is not good for the kids that are playing college football. Let's start with the sport itself and the people that make the sport worthwhile, and that's the fans. Remember that time during COVID when there were no fans in stadiums or reduced capacity? Yeah, I remember that. It stunk. And one of the greatest moments that I remember as a college football fan is when we were finally able to get fans safely back into stadiums, and Wisconsin did jump around. I'm not a Wisconsin Badger fan, but watching that happen for the first time in several years was a beautiful thing to watch. So when I think about what's better for college football, I'm thinking about the fans, because far too many people in this space or at levels far higher than mine are not thinking about the fans. So for college football fans, it is becoming increasingly more difficult to root for your team, not on Saturdays, but during the off season. And remember, the season's just about over, by the way, which that's very sad. But the season is end of August to now middle towards end of January. But for most people, it ends sometime in December. Then you have this big, long offseason where, of course, you're going to keep up with your team. What do you think I talk about on Locked On College Football all year round? But when you have situations like this, where a kid is bouncing around from place to place, this is just a high-profile example, but there are several others out there. It becomes hard to be a fan. Because a lot of college football fans, a lot of people that listen to or watch this show, I know, are middle-aged folks who grew up in a time where when you committed to play for a school, you committed and you stayed committed to play for that school. So the mercenary approach to college athletics is harder for the fans. It's one of the reasons that college football actually has had an advantage over college basketball. College basketball introduced the one and done, and that's the worst thing that college basketball could have done. That's, player empowerment of sorts. And sure, maybe it's better to have kids for 1 year rather than 0 years, but is it? Because attachments are formed between fans and players, sometimes instantaneously, but mostly over the course of a career. and you get a familiarity with a kid. And then when he actually walks on senior day, it means something. Rather than this kid's walking on senior day, he showed up to our program earlier this year, and yeah, we appreciate his efforts, but I mean, I don't really, know this guy. Okay. The connection is different because it doesn't feel like the people who are making the sport, the players, are as committed to the school as the fans are. So when that's a one-way avenue, that's a frustrating thing for a lot of fans. Now, television numbers are incredibly strong. So college football, I'm not saying is dying. I'm still saying it can become better. So Rashada's career trajectory here is just one example of many where fans just throw up their hands and go, what are we doing here? Do you actually care about the sport, or do you care about what the sport can do for you? And fair or not, that's the question reaction that a lot of fans have. I can't blame them for going there when kids are doing this sort of stuff all the time. I mean, Ashton Jeanty is kind of a one-off. In today's world, it's surprising when a kid plays in a bowl game, or it's surprising when someone like Jeanty doesn't jump to the Power 4 ranks and stays loyal to the school that gave him an opportunity and is okay with whatever NIL resources exist there. Because I guarantee you, Ashton Jeanty had some big-time offers to go to the Power 4 ranks. Could have made a lot more money. Stayed with Boise State. I can appreciate that. I understand why kids bounce around a lot, but I don't think that it's actually a healthy dynamic between the fans and the teams. I think you create a level of resentment amongst fans to some extent. So that's the first side of it. The second side of it is I don't think this is great for the kids. And we should remember, these are kids. They get compared to adults all of the time who are in the coaching profession that can move around at will. And I am not against, in any way, shape, or form, the idea that you can transfer if your coach leaves. Because that's something that you can't always anticipate. And I'm not against the portal per se. But thinking about the concept of, hey, if you're a non-graduate student, maybe you get one transfer where you're immediately eligible. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Because believe it or not, this is going to sound very old-fashioned, perhaps even strange, coming from someone who is as young as me. I think college should be about learning life lessons and also maturing and growing. But going out there and just trying to find what is best for you and not being willing to sink your teeth into a tough situation and make the most of it, I don't think is accomplishing one of the fundamental goals of college football. And that's give kids an opportunity to better themselves. You are teaching them to look out for themselves and to just take the easiest route that they can possibly find. So this whole mess, I have no idea where he's going to end up. Absolutely, positively no idea. I hope it's a situation where he can settle in and go to succeed. I'm not rooting against the kid. My point is railing against the entire sport in general. That NIL was rolled out with little to no guardrails. The NCAA has lost the thread on governing college football. Schools have too much control over their own schedules. The conferences were able to realign, which we've all just accepted as, oh, okay, yeah, that's great and fine, when it's actually creating a lot more problems than it is solving. And this is the world that we've got. So you have all of these issues all across the sport. The calendar, scheduling, just go down the list. They're all over the place. And people like me will come on a show like this and say, this is a problem, needs to be fixed. I don't know how it gets fixed. I would love to be optimistic because if you haven't figured out, I love this sport and I want what is best for it. But where you create a culture in which he wants to go from this school to that school, but now he's leaving this school and suing that NIL collective over there because they promised him a bunch of money and he's not going to get, that's not constructive for anybody. Not helpful, not good. Please, someone figure it out. I don't know who. It probably comes down to the conference commissioners. Do I have a lot of faith that they can fix it? No, I really don't. They've helped create a lot of the problems that we currently have today. The Pac-12, RIP, died because of the actions of those individuals. So I don't have that much hope. But you know what? I don't have zero hope because there are a lot of people that care about this sport, and I'm hoping that the popularity of college football drives action to move it in the right direction. Let's keep our fingers crossed.